Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Control Academy. I'm your host Marshall, and I'm here with the first deck that I'm putting out since the release of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and I am so excited. Before I get into the deck, I do want to just really thank everyone who's subscribed to the channel. I know it's not a lot because I'm still new here, but we crossed 150 subscribers this past week. And considering that this time last week, the channel had something like 60, and, you know, at the beginning of this year, it was, you know, something like 25 subscribers, you know, that growth to me feels really tangible and really great. And so I want to thank you all. It makes me feel like this is worth committing to doing, and that y'all are getting some value out of this. And I hope that's true. Because I enjoy doing it, and it makes it really feel worthwhile knowing people are liking it. I'm going to leave a couple questions. It's in the pinned comment down below because I want to make sure I'm doing as much for you, the viewers, as possible. So I'd like to know, one, is there any other format that I can play that you might be interested in seeing? I'm really interested in adding a second video per week. So usually I put up a video on Tuesdays. So this would add a second video probably on Thursdays. And so the question is, would you want to see an additional best of one standard? Would you want to see best of one on one day, best of three on another day? Would you like to see modern on one of those days? That's a format I have a lot more experience with. Just let me know. I don't mind mixing it up, but I also want to make sure that I'm addressing the needs and wants of the subscribers. And then the second question I have is, are there things that I could be doing better that you wouldn't mind sharing with me? Or are there things that I'm doing well that you'd like to see me do more of? Both of those things are really important to me as I try to make sure that I am spending my time doing the things that mean the most to you, the viewers, because that's who these videos are ultimately for. Anyway, that aside, again, thank you so much for everyone. And again, it does really mean a lot to me that y'all are liking and subscribing and enjoying the videos. All right, so on to today's deck. We're playing blue-white control today. This is probably one of my favorite combination of colors to play, just full stop. Maybe second to like Esper control. And I do have some fun ideas for Esper decks coming up. But today, for the first deck of this really wacky first day of the format, I wanted to stick to the tried and true blue-white, easy mana to drop in and see what we can accomplish from there. You'll notice that there's a lot of sort of DNA in common with this and my Judge control deck from a couple months ago. It's the first day of the format. I know that there are a lot of tweaks that are going to have to happen to this deck. So I'm starting from that point. But we've got a couple cards that really supercharge that strategy, which was already doing pretty well in my hands. And this one so far is really doing great. Of note, we lost Divide by Zero from Judge control since the last time I played it on camera. And so we already had some tweaking that needed to happen. And so luckily, I think that hole is not quite so apparent. So the Judge control deck was a dirty blue-white deck. We had Faithful Absence for removal, Sunset Revelry to sort of buffer our life total, Faithful Mending as our sort of workhorse card draw engine. I've gone back to Saw It Coming from Wash Away since we don't have All Runs Epiphany in the format anymore. The upside of the Cleave side of that was not quite so intense, so going back to Saw It Coming has generally been as good or better in most cases. And then Faithbound Judge was the main win con there. I've gone down to 3 in here because I think it's still a really great way to win the game. Because when you can play the enchantment from the graveyard, a lot of decks just can't deal with being put on such a tight clock when you have the board under control. And so it's a great way to just win on a completely unexpected axis. The biggest place where this deck has changed is in terms of some of the removal spells and some of the upper end threats. So let's start with the upper end threats. Kairi, the Swirling Sky, is the new legendary Dragon Spirit in blue, and it is nuts. So for 6 mana, which you'll note puts another threat on the curve a little bit below the Hullbreaker Horror that we already had in the deck, and the Faithbound Judge's enchantment side. So that's already a good place to start. So a flying 6/6 with Ward 3, I would be tempted to play the card as is. But then it reads, when it dies, you get to choose one of 2 modes. You can either return any number of target non-land permanents with a total mana value of 6 or less to their owner's hands, or mill 6, then return up to 2 instants and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. So these modes are both all gas all the time. And so it means that when it's out on the board, when you first cast it, it's fly it in for 6. It's hard for them to kill. And inevitably they will try to kill it, and whether that's through a removal spell or just forcing you to chump block it. And when they do, generally you kind of get to do a mini Cyclonic Rift on their side of the board, which is pretty great. And that's probably the most common mode I've picked. But if you're already far enough ahead that you aren't worried about bouncing a significant number of permanents on their board, like maybe they're down to 1 creature and you've got another removal spell in hand, that mill 6 return 2 instants and sorceries from the graveyard is pretty great, especially since we have 2 things that have flashback in the deck that we're using on the regular. It means that we can make use of that mill probably more effectively than you might expect. So Kairi is great. I have not been sad to see this card in a hand since I started playing it today. The other major change in the deck is we get to replace Devastating Mastery with Farewell. And controversy around the regular art of this card notwithstanding, this is pretty close to exactly what I wanted to replace Devastating Mastery in this slot. So it's another 6 mana Wrath. I wasn't really all that keen on the 4 mana version of Devastating Mastery anyway. Like, there were some times when it saved my butt, but it was pretty uncommon that I wanted to go down that path. But the real limitation of Devastating Mastery is that if I was playing with the Sinner's Judgment on the table, it would nuke it. And so you kind of have this place where having something that can deal with non-creature permanents is really great, but then it would sort of conflict with my secondary win con, whereas Farewell lets you go ahead and pick and choose. So if you want to go ahead and exile all creatures and all graveyards and all artifacts but leave enchantments behind, totally fine. It can do that no problem, because again, it's choose 1 or more, so you can have as many of these modes as you want. If for some reason you've got a Kairi or a Hullbreaker Horror on the battlefield and you want to leave those in place but then wipe off some of the enchantments that have become pretty common in some of the games I've played so far, that is doable in this card. So the flexibility here is really, really hard to understate, and it's important. So really happy to swap out Devastating Mastery for Farewell. I think it's going to be a mainstay of white control decks for a while. The other major removal spell that we added here is March of Otherworldly Light. This has been doing well enough in my hands that I'm tempted to go up a copy, but I'm not totally sure at this point. Again, there's going to be a lot of little tweaks that happen to this once we are more than 12 hours into the format, so bear with me. Having this as one of has been great because there's just a bunch of creatures that this hits at a pretty decent rate. Again, you can also get artifacts or enchantments with it, so it's pretty flexible there. And then the fact that if you're a little bit short on mana, you can exile cards from your hand to pay for this has been really, really useful. So sometimes you're sitting with like a Sunset Revelry or a Faithful Mending in hand that you don't really need that badly. You can toss it into March of Otherworldly Light, get a little bit more juice into it, and it is really, really good, and it catches people off guard, which is important because they'll see that you've got 1 or 2 mana open, and even if they're thinking of this card, most people don't really think about whether or not you'll use that exile card from hand mode, and that's pretty good. Also, I want to point out in the art, you can see the bottom left here, we've got the Mochi Kami, which is the cutest thing to come out of the set. So I also am just generally in love with the art from this set altogether. Other things that are worth removal spells are actually over here in the land slot. We've got a Ganjo, Seat of the Empire. This plays very much like a MDFC in that the channel effect is just there, and you can either play it as a spell or play it as the land. And so from that perspective, I haven't yet seen a case where it being an ability versus a spell really matters yet. But it is nice that you just get this sort of flexibility here. It's essentially a giant Gideon's Reproach tacked onto a land. And, you can technically get a discount on it if Kairi's on the battlefield. But generally you're spending 3 on this. But again, just having yet another removal spell tacked onto a land is pretty great. I've got 2 copies of this in here. It's a legendary land, so that's why there's not a whole pile of them in here. We need to hit land drops in this deck, so we can't afford to have these sitting dead in our hand, so there's 2 of them there. And as a one-of, we've got Otawara Soaring City. This one is a little bit less useful in this deck, but still a great card. Its channel ability is to return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. So that sort of bouncing helps shore up particularly the planeswalker weakness that we lose from Devastating Mastery. So I didn't mention that Farewell, the only major downside it has over Devastating Mastery is that it can't Wrath Planeswalkers, and so Otawara gives us the ability to bounce one in a case of emergency. At 4 mana, it's pretty expensive to activate, but it's tacked onto a land. It's really low cost to include one of these, and with one of them, you don't even have to worry about it being a legendary land, and so. Haven't yet really seen this be super clutch, but if you've got a copy, there's really no worry, or there's really no reason not to include it. But that being said, if you're short on rare wild cards, I think you can skip this one. But Iganjo it's solid. Last but not least, for the new Kamigawa cards, is Discover the Impossible. This has been pretty solid, all things considered. So it lets you look at the top 5 cards of your library, which is digging pretty far down the library, all things considered. You exile one of them face down and put the rest on the bottom of the library. And essentially, you either draw the card, or if it's a instant with mana value 2 or less, you get to play it for free. Sometimes, every now and then, it lets you just looky-loo for a Fading Hope, Fateful Absence, Faithful Mending, and just cast it off the top for your deck for free. Which is pretty solid, but most of the time, even just being able to use it to grab another card from your deck is pretty good. I think this is probably one of the cards that I am most skeptical of in the deck currently, just because there's a good chance it should just be extra copies of either Fateful Absence or something like that. But I've had pretty good luck with it, lining up with grabbing some of these lower mana cost spells. So I'm going to keep playing with it. But this is probably one of the cards that if you told me I'm wrong to include it, I'm not going to argue with you on it. Down here, I'm still including Fading Hope as the sort of 1 mana bounce spell. It's a solid card just in general, because there's a lot of holdover from the last format where there's just creature deck after creature deck after creature deck. I think that as more control decks come out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and we start seeing more of these enchantment-based decks, which people seem to be really excited about, I think shaving some number of these to become Spell Pierce is probably going to ultimately be the right decision. But based on the day 0 meta, I was playing with Spell Pierce and just kept being underwhelmed because it was being matched up against a lot of the decks that were already in the format, which don't really care about paying 3 extra for a non-creature. So again, this is a spot that I think will flex as the meta changes, but I wanted to call out specifically why I'm not playing Spell Pierce is because as of right now, the way I've been playing for the past couple hours, Spell Pierce has not been performing very well, but I think that's just a function of the meta being bizarre right now. Otherwise, that's the deck. It's blue-white control. It's hard to go wrong with. I think it's going to be a blast. And so thanks for sticking around through the deck tech. I'll see you in the games. And if you like the video, I would love it if you drop a thumbs up on it and maybe consider subscribing. All right, first opponent up is Umarono. Good luck. All right. The first opening hand of the game is actually pretty solid looking. We're almost certainly going to have to play this Aggro as a land and not as a removal spell, but we've got a Wrath, we've got a counter, we've got card draw, and we've even got one of our top end threats. The lack of a second blue is not ideal, but I think this is keepable, especially on the play. I feel like I'm never on the play these days. It's great. My emotes aren't working. What's up with that? All right. Against black here. So it's pretty high probability this is the black-white deck that has been really popular lately. I think, and there's a reasonable probability that I'm wrong about this, but I think foretelling Saw It Coming is going to be more important, at least initially, than foretelling Doomskar. The reason being that there is the board states that are worth wrathing on take longer to build up for the black-white deck than some of the other things, whereas countering a what do you want to call it? Countering a wedding invitation is going to be much more important. But we're at the point where pretty soon we're going to be able to do both. But I am glad that I held off on the Doomskar because they really haven't put any pressure on me. I'm passing here to leave up Memory Deluge instead of foretelling Doomskar for all the reasons I was just discussing. And here we get our first look at what they're doing. I think I'm going to let that resolve because I really want this Memory Deluge. And I've drawn enough lands that I might actually be able to use Aggro as a proper removal spell. Moving on, no problem. Drawing the second Hullbreaker Horror was not ideal, but we'll survive. I definitely want this Faithful Absence because it's functionally free. And I think I want Otawara, so I can have a little bit more blue mana up. It's a tough call, all things considered. I think there's a lot of right answers there, but go with that. Here, land number 5, it's tough because I would, the question is, do we get the tap land out of the way now? Thinking about it now, there's probably a better land in Standard now than Glacial Floodplain, but oh well. Or do I leave up potentially both countering and Aggro-ing? And I think the answer is Otawara. I don't think... I mean, there is a chance that I rip Kairi off the top next turn and wish that I had an untapped 6, and, that's something I'm just going to have to live with. But the other side of it is just that... I play that on 6 and do the exact same thing because all of my other top threats or top cards to play are at 7 mana. There's no attack. Given what's in my hand, I'm going to Aggro here. It's tempted to save the land for the weird instance that I rip exactly Kairi off the top, but Fateful Absence is going to be more flexible here. Totally happy to counter a Wedding Invitation. That generates so much value so quickly that I just do not want my opponent sitting on that any longer than they have to. Here I'll foretell the Doomskar. Yeah, whether they're attacking or just letting it sit, Wedding Invitation is real good. They're going to do that. And before they can attack, I'm just going to go ahead and nuke it. They'll be able to float some mana and draw a card off the clue, but I don't want them exiling my Memory Deluge because I really like to cast it. All things considered, not drawing a land here is annoying, but it's fine. I'm actually going to main phase Faithful Mending here to try to hit a land drop, and it did not. But I will pitch a Judge and a Faithful Mending, both of which are good plays from the yard. But yeah, I was really hoping to hit a land drop because we've got a lot of things on 7 that I want to be able to play. So Wedding Announcement. Don't think there's anything I'm going to be able to do about that regardless. So I'll go ahead and let that resolve. At least we've got Farewell, so I can nuke everything eventually. So that's fine. I'll resolve this. And then I'm going to go ahead and Mending again. There's my land, and this becomes a tough decision. Toss the Deluge in the yard, and this feels bad, but a Hullbreaker Horror as well. Can't cast if you don't drop lands, but yeah, there we go. Put a Hengegate Pathway on blue. So there's only one card that needs triple white in this new version of the deck, and that is Emeria's Call. So unlike the previous one where you had to prioritize getting 3 white mana, in this case you can get through the vast majority of the deck with just 2 white pips. So that's why I'm doing that. And then here I'm just going to go ahead and pass. In reality, this is almost certainly going to be a Memory Deluge turn, but if for some reason they tap super low, then a Hullbreaker Horror. But I don't see them doing that. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm not going to Hullbreaker into, 7 open mana. It seems like a poor choice. Okay, here. There's some good stuff here. I like Kairi. And the question is, do I get the land? So they're okay. So they're basically 2 packages that I'm interested in here. Either Kairi and March of Otherworldly Light. So that way we have a big threat and something we can basically back that up by threatening to get rid of the Wedding Invitation with March. The alternative to that is grab a land and a Fading Hope, so that way we can Hullbreaker Horror and then Fading Hope. And I think I actually just talked myself into that. So let's hope it's right. Because with that we can, well, we got a land anyway. Because with that, then we can potentially really set them back by bouncing the Wedding Announcement. We'll hopefully get another Kairi eventually. But yeah, let's just pass here and see what we can do. Alright, so they're tapping down for the cave. So they got 3 mana. Let's give them down to 2. So, yep. I'm going to Hullbreaker Horror. And then they're going to Vanishing Verse. It's not the end of the world, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce the Cave of the Frost Dragon, and then use Hullbreaker to return target spell I don't control to its owner's hand, which is going to be Vanishing Verse. They don't have enough mana to cast it again. Saw it coming is great up the top, and now I can leave the Hullbreaker on the table. They are going to draw a card off this wedding announcement. It's not ideal, but in a perfect world, it's not going to matter. So here I'm going to leave... okay, they're scooping it up. Between the Hullbreaker Horror and the amount of counter magic and card draw we had, that was over. But hey, that's blue-white control. Doing blue-white control type things. See you in the next one. All right. Next opponent up. Grundomu. Good luck, Grundomu. All right. We are sitting on 3 lands. A couple removal spells, counterspell, Memory Deluge. I like this a lot. I'll keep it. Won't be able to march on the turn 1, but that's totally fine. Glacial Floodplain. Green-white. I'm wondering if this might be the Saga deck I saw earlier. With red, no, it's probably a Naya Human. I was about to say Naya Human, never mind. It's Naya something, but that's not what I anticipated. Got it. Well, here, I think I'm actually going to play... what do I want to do here? Yeah, I don't think I march. I'd better rather take some damage next turn, I suppose. I'll get this Doomskar online and accept that. Take some damage off of whatever. This and whatever they give haste. I really like the design of this card. It seems really interesting. Kappa Tech Wrecker. Whenever it deals combat damage, you may remove the death counter. Okay. So they have to remove the death touch counter to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Not something I actually care about just yet anyway. But it's good to know about. So here, it's good to know that there's also probably ninjutsu things happening. I think I'm going to foretell a saw coming. That lets me not leave up March of the Otherworldly Light because I do not have any other white mana or white cards in my hand, but oh well. Thunderous Order. Yeah, that's fine. That's interesting. I wonder if yeah, they're able to pass on a lot of abilities to that, perhaps. This is interesting. This deck is making me think, and that's fun. Let's go ahead and Floodplain and just blow them up. Jugan defends the temple. They get a mana dork, then they get +1/+1 counters on 2 creatures, and then it turns into a 2/2 flyer. They can put counters on creatures. As long as you control 5 or more modified creatures, it gets +5/+5 and trample. Well, that seems interesting. Interesting indeed. So how to proceed from here? So I can get Farewell next turn, so that's not a huge deal. Do I want to take 4? That's the real question. So the basically the 2 things I can do is I can either March of Otherworldly Light for 3, Oh, 4 mana total. And prevent these from getting counters. Or I could leave up Memory Deluge and just accept that I'm going to at least 8. I think that's going to have to be it, because I need some action. In any case, next turn I get to nuke it all anyway. So, yeah, that ain't ideal. I guess I can technically get rid of the monk token for just 1 mana. Yeah, it seems alright. Confirm 0. Submit 0. Just exile that. Save myself some damage. Might tease out some stuff. Snakeskin Veil, yeah. Alright, yeah, that's fine. Just kind of gonna get wrathed anyway. Going down to 7 is not where I really want it to be, but I'm fine. Getting to select from some stuff right here is pretty useful. This is a weird spot for Faithbound Judge. I think where I want to go with this, so I'm at 6 mana next turn. I can keep Discover the Impossible, and that can get me some more action. Keeping a second Wrath seems wise given how they've been playing, but Faithful Absence might also be good. I think, given that I've got Faithful Mending, I'm going to take Farewell and Fateful Absence. Count on eventually drawing a different threat. And then here, we'll just go ahead and get rid of everything but graveyards. Because I want this Memory Deluge. I've been really liking Farewell a lot. Interesting. When it dies, if it had 2 or more +1/+1 counters on it, create a token that's a copy of it at the beginning of the next step. That token enters with half that many +1/+1 counters on it, rounded down. Okie dokie. Well, play this on blue. And then I guess I will... I drew my Judge anyway, so that's pretty cool. I'll play out the Faithbound Judge. That leaves me enough to Fateful Absence and 1 other thing. I will probably want to kill this jelly in response to this. Counter the Snakeskin Veil. The Allenbach Escort can still make the tokens that it makes indestructible, but I'm less worried about that. Oh, it only makes 1 token. Well, that's much less scary. So I think I'll leave, saw it coming on the 3 mana mode so that I can potentially Memory Deluge. But then I've got some backup options. I'm really hoping I can swords somebody at some point. Do I care? I don't care right now. At least not enough to put off Memory Delusion. Pass to combat. Stack them up on the ooze, I suppose. Alright. Let's draw some cards. Well, that's a pile of good stuff. I think I'd like a Hullbreaker Horror. That seems decent. And then I guess I will take a... Got the Farewell, so I don't necessarily need the Doomskar. A Ganjo is decent. Sunset Revelry. Let's go ahead and take the Sunset Revelry, actually. I'm pretty low on life. I won't get to draw cards off of it, but I need to make sure I can actually insulate myself a little bit. Otawara is actually interesting here, but I think I want to hit my land drop. And then I'm going to... Let's see. Yeah, I'd have to empty my hand, so that's not going to happen. Let's foretell this. And then Sunset Revelry, get some dudes, gain some life. Lets me leave up Faithful Mending and Saw It Coming, although I don't see myself Faithful Mending with this hand. Maybe I will. I need the life. Twin Blade Geist. Interesting. What's Disturb is you can enchant something else to have it. Yeah, I think I will let that resolve. Probably regret that. Pass 2 attackers. Yep. Yeah, I'm actually fine with jumping here. Because then I can just farewell and be done with it. Yeah, no worries there. So let's gain some life. My assumption is... Ooh, that's interesting. I think I still pitch the Doomskar because I really want to exile these things so they stop coming back. But that's a tough choice. Kairi is going to be fun, but not right now. Let's go ahead and signal my intentions more clearly than I ever have before. There are no... well, I guess, alright, there's possible tricks, I guess. I shouldn't say there are no tricks, but like when the white-blue deck just attacks in with their 2 tokens, guns a-blazing, yeah, let's be on the safe side. Just grab everything but the graveyards. There we go. And then I got a counter spell in case they play anything scary. That isn't scary. So here, I'm going to play Kairi. Lets me leave up all the same stuff. And then hope, like, what I want to get to is a place where I can leave up Hullbreaker and like Faithful Mending. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. Not at all. My turn. Cool, so going to start the swords. No attacks. There we go. Well, that's a land. It's just not quite the land I was looking for, but this is fine. Can leave Kairi in defense mode and Memory Deluge. Kodama of the West Tree. This is... Do I want to get rid of that? This one is... I'm going to counter that. I don't know that it's actually all that scary, but it's got a strong effect, and I don't want to be put in a position where I have to worry about trampling things, especially with this Selfless Samurai being able to give anything indestructible. I just don't want to play that game. So Memory Deluge. Fading Hope is great when you get a Hullbreaker Horror. And then I will grab... It's either the plains, or so that I can get to 11 mana, which is Hullbreaker plus Memory Deluge, or the Discover the Impossible, which is the alternative there. That's pretty cool because I get 2 hits off the Hullbreaker potentially. So let's take that. There's 2. And I got my land anyway, see? You just gotta have faith in these sort of things, you know? And at this point, I don't even need to do any attacking. Just leave Kairi back on defense and trust in Hullbreaker Horror and all of my other goodies to get us there. Good game, Grandomu. Oh, I love Sinner's Judgment. The card's so good. Alright, next opponent up. Man Bear Pig. Good luck, Man Bear Pig. Some say you don't exist, but I know you're real. This is interesting, especially on the draw. We've got virtually a pile of removal, but not a whole lot of real action. I think it's better than going to 6, but this one's not straightforward. Alright, it's mono white. This is dicey, but not really the end of the world. So, we'll see what we can do. I'm not looking forward to getting spellbindered. However, it's nice that Aggro cannot be spellbound. Alright, so I'm going to Fading Hope here so I can try to set up my next draw. Yeah, they're going to boast. That's fine. I love Kairi. And we're pretty close to the mana we need to cast it. Do I really want to draw that? Yeah, I'm going to draw it. It's probably going to be a mistake in reality, but we'll see what happens. YOLO. Yep, take the 1. Usher. Fine. If that's all you got, then I'm not too worried. Let's go ahead and draw cards. White, red in this format. It's interesting. I'll go ahead and the Field of Ruin's actually going to be pretty useful. Then I'm going to play the game of double white versus double whatever. I think. Pitch this, and I guess that's really the question. I don't really have any other way. Well, I got the Aggro. Yeah, pitch the Field of Ruin and the basic island. Feels wrong. At least my next one's going to be an easier decision, I suppose. Play this on blue. And pass turn. Alright, so the real question is, what are they playing toward? Because this doesn't really look like the Naya Humans deck. And I don't know that I've seen a ton of Boros decks up to this point, but I will happily counter an Elite Spellbinder. I guess it's possible this is just splashing red for like play with fire and stuff, and it just looks like it's over-representing the red splash, but who knows, honestly. Usher seems decent. Here's where I have to play my Aggro and weep silently. Here comes a judge to play interference on the board. I fully expect that they have yet another elite spellbinder. Yeah, of course they do, because why wouldn't they? At least I can block the heck out of it. The real question is whether will they take the Kairi or the Farewell. I don't know what the right answer is. It really depends on what else is left in their hand. But the fact that they took the Farewell tells me that they've got no fear whatsoever. Let's main phase Memory Deluge. Try to get a land. Well, that is a land. It's just not the one I wanted. I've already got a Kairi, so I'll take another Memory Deluge. Play land and pass. Okay. Yeah. Fine. The upside. Oh, they took the Kairi. I was going to say, if they take the Memory Deluge, which is what I probably would have taken, then I actually get something out of it, but that's fine. I put the other Kairi to the bottom, which makes us feel a little bit worse, but I guess they were just planning on taking both of them anyway, but this is fine. We'll get to 8 mana, and it'll be like none of this ever happened. Cool. Well, let's do another main phase Memory Deluge. Grab land, and I think the answer is Sunset Revelry. And here, we've already got plenty of white, so I'll put this on blue. The question is, do I leave up Fading Hope or Sunset Revelry? I think the answer is a Sunset Revelry. I get everything but the card. Seems okay. Come on, Mare Bear Pig. Don't do me like that. They've got enough creatures where if they're... Ooh. Alright. I was about to say, if they feel like they can get away with chumping some, then... no worries. Let's see. Here... I think preventing 1 damage isn't going to be really that much better than keeping the creatures, so we'll see what happens there. We're getting closer and closer to being able to do this. So the question is, do I Faithful Mending in hopes of getting something else, or do I leave up Memory Deluge with Fading Hope? None of them feel great, honestly. I think Memory Deluge is probably the better thing to play toward, because if I can get to 8 mana, then I can make this game much more one-sided. It's being complicated by the fact that I can't really do anything about that. But I think the answer... Actually, I think the answer is going to be on Fading Hope, and then I Faithful Mending as well. Because... can bounce this Cave of the Frost Dragon. Set up that draw. Oh, yeah. I will draw that. And then I'll Faithful Mending. Okay, this is okay. But now I have to choose between the land or the Hullbreaker Horror. The land lets me Wrath, so unfortunately I do need to discard the Hullbreaker Horror, which feels awful. It takes 6. Yikes. They're probably looking at that Hullbreaker Horror and being like, what? There's the Cave of the Frost Dragon back. Let's see, I've got 3 mana, but I don't want to discard anything, so... Hey, that's not so bad. Let's attack. And farewell. Artifacts, creatures, enchantments. Goodbye. Oh, love that card. They can still hit for quite a lot this turn, but getting closer to the end. Kairi is going to be pretty decent. Play Emeria's Call. Oh, actually. So the question is, do I play Emeria's Call as a land or save it as a creature? If I play Kairi, it's going to probably... They either need to have a removal spell, which, if it's a red base removal, then I'm gonna get some value off that anyway. If they can exile it, then that's GG. But this should disincentivize some of their aggression anyway, and it's expensive to kill. Luminarch seems decent. Stormseeker is a real card. Alright. Aggro is a good pull. So here, I think I make 2 angels. And no attacks. I'm not out of the woods yet, but this is getting better, maybe. The alternative was to leave up Aggro, and oof. Okay. Alright, if they... Okay, that was absolutely not the correct way to play that. So I'll kill this. Kill this. Kill this. Take 4. Oof. Is definitely dicey. All right, I think yeah. Well, I've got Aggro, so that's fine. But there's definitely a lot that can go wrong here. Intrepid Adversary. Okay. Let's discover. Normally, I'd be very excited to see 2 Wraths, but this is not ideal. Alright, so resolve that. Yikes. Thank goodness for Aggro, because that's what's going to save me here. Okay. Channel Aggro to kill the adversary, and then I can eat the Stormcharge Slasher. That went about as well as I could hope, I suppose. Problem is, I'm still staring down creature lands, so I think I have to pass. I do have to remember that I've got this Hall of the Storm Giants down here as well. Drop a Faithbound Judge. I want to get to a point where I'm not worrying continuously about these creature lands and then drop the swords side of Faithbound Judge. Well, let's cross our fingers and pray. Oh my gosh. What rips? Attack, I dare you. Let's go ahead and draw 2, gain 2. Fading Hope is actually not awful, all things considered. Discard Farewell, as ridiculous as that sounds. I only have half my deck left at this point. Jeez. March of Otherworldly Light is actually pretty good here. I don't mind this at all. Alright, and then Showdown of the Scalds is gonna have to just be fine. Alright, this is still very dicey, but I think I can get out of this, actually. I still need to sit back on defense, though. Okay. Land is actually not awful for them here because it gives them a heck of a lot more options with these creature lands. The Goldspan doesn't worry me that much. The Blade Historian is not ideal, but I can deal with it. It's a 4 mana, that's fine. Let's see how they choose to proceed. Okay. Well, that makes life a little bit easier. He's going to attack. They're thinking, a 6/5 double striker with trample. That's pretty reasonable, right? And I'm going to say, try again next turn. Doomskar to the bottom because I need to keep my board. And in this case, I'm going to let the Blade Historian stick around for a second so that I can cast one of these Memory Deluges. Alright. Hullbreaker's a pretty good place to be. And then question is, do I take a Faithful Mending or land at 9 mana? I think I take a Faithful Mending so that I can use it in conjunction with the Hullbreaker. Pass turn. Saw it coming is not awful either. And so, yeah, this is fine. I can probably lure them into a trap at the very least. No attacks, end turn. Let's see. Elite Spellbinder. Okay. Okay, so what do I need to do here? I need to... I can just counter it and be done with it. It doesn't solve the... Well... Yeah, that's probably the right call. Counter the Elite Spellbinder, and then I can still march the Blade Historian. All right. Pass to attackers. They're not attacking. Interesting. I still think, given where things are, I need to... Don't need to do that. I'm going to exile the Blade Historian. I suppose I just realized how good March of Otherworldly Light is against creature lands, but I do need to get rid of that Blade Historian ASAP. The nice little upside is now I can attack with Faithbound Judge. Who knows, maybe I will get in with damage. I wouldn't say I've been stuck on mana, but I needed to have a little bit more flexibility in order to be able to drop the swords side of this. But, you know, the front side also works well enough too. All right, show me your moves. All right, let's drop the Hullbreaker. And this might... Yep, there's the concession. All right. Good game, Man Bear Pig. You tried. No, that was a good game. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the wrap-up for the video. So I hope you enjoyed those games with what I'm calling Kairi control. It's just Azorius control. I don't think it's necessarily dependent on Kairi, but it was a really big reason that the deck was able to stabilize as well as it was. I think in the games that showed up on camera, the death trigger for Kairi didn't show up as often as it has in other games, but you'll see that like in that game against the Boros aggro deck, part of the reason that they were so reluctant to just attack into it is that you know, trade off their creature against it to try to, you know, break through. Is that those death triggers are backbreaking, whether it's, you know, the first one or the second one. So whether bouncing non-land permanents or milling and getting back instants and sorceries, like those are everything that the deck wants to do, and they're just so good. Hullbreaker's still great. I think Faithbound Judge was excellent. We actually got a win with the backside there, so, you know, the Judge is still alive and strong. This other cards from Kamigawa, Farewell, awesome. Absolutely happy with the inclusion here. There are going to be the corner cases where it not destroying planeswalkers is a downside, but luckily Fateful Absence is one of the few 2-mana removal spells that can kill planeswalkers, so we're not dead in the water against those, so I'm pretty happy there. Given the decks that I face today, there are plenty of changes I'd make. I honestly think going down on Sunset Revelry makes a lot of sense, since the format seems to be slowing down a little bit. There's a little bit less of the sort of you know, low to the ground white aggro. But that being said, who knows what the format's going to be tomorrow, because this is day 0. And that's kind of the reason that I am going to be a little bit reluctant to give recommendations about how to change the deck. I think there's still a lot of tuning to be done because the entire metagame is stabilizing. Pretty much every deck that I've played today had some amount of influence from the new set, and I don't think any of them had really found their true identity yet. And that's really exciting because, it's a time to experiment and play and find all of those fun interactions. But it does mean that as a content creator, I can't promise that this is going to be the best configuration of the deck. But knowing that we have an ultra flexible Wrath, March of the Otherworldly Light is excellent. I realized in that last game how solid it is against creature lands. Just literally pay 1 mana and you can just ultra path a creature land. It's excellent. Iganjo was totally solid. Still haven't seen the distinction of channel versus an MDFC be relevant yet, but that being said, it's still just a genuinely strong land. Even just channeling it for 3 mana, it's enough to get by enough of the time that it's worth including. Still haven't activated Otawara, but again, the barrier is so low, you just may as well include it if you've got it. And so the weakest cards, again, definitely Sunset Revelry was pretty underwhelming compared to the past when it was pretty much mandatory to stabilize. We'll see how the aggro decks shape up and whether or not this still deserves a place in the main deck. Discover the Impossible was pretty medium, and that's fine. I think it could probably do to just be more removal spells. But that being said, it is nice that it lets you potentially play the card for free. So it's not a card that I am jumping to cut by any means. But I think that, it's probably the first place I'd tweak if you're looking to fit in something particular. Otherwise, it's blue-white control. It's going to take a lot to make me unexcited about blue-white control. And so give the deck a shot. It's a lot of fun, and it plays even better in this post-Kamigawa format than it did previously, I think. And so I'm just really excited to see how this format shapes up. Anyway, as usual, I've been your host, Marshall, here on the Control Academy. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are really liking what we're doing on the channel, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe. But that's up to you. In any case, I'll check you in the next one as we continue to dig deeper into what Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is going to do to this format. Take it easy. Bye.
Searching for greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of